This past August, I got the chance to cover the INDYCAR race at the Milwaukee Mile, Snap-on 250.
Rasmussen keeps it stuck in. Rasmussen is gutsy. Rasmussen is brave. Oh, hangs on. They run high. And Rasmussen has the lead.
I've been doing photography for the better part of a decade now, and motorsport photography for about 5 years, but I haven't shot on an oval until this day. It was a simply incredible experience, and I learned and got to see a lot of new things, and I want to share that with you guys today. But before we get into that, quick fit check. Now onto the first thing I noticed straight away. You're going to be shooting through a fence a lot. For some context, to date, most of my motorsport photography experience has come at Road America. Road America is a very open track with a lot of cool areas you can go to shoot, and at many locations on the track, the only thing separating you and the actual racetrack is the concrete barrier. So there aren't any physical walls between yourself and the cars, and that goes for with or without a media pass. This is completely different at an oval, and especially at the Milwaukee Mile. Pretty much the entire perimeter is going to be surrounded by a safer barrier and a very tall fence above that. And while there are photo holes around the track, especially at the mile, they are few and far between. That means oftentimes if you want to get a certain angle, you're gonna have to cope with shooting through a fence. Now this meant that I had to pay special attention to all of my camera settings. I took a lot of pictures at a very low shutter speed, lots of panning through fences, and trying to manipulate head-on shots to where that fence doesn't really come through. This is my trusty Sigma 120-400, and it's the lens I shoot most of my motorsport stuff on. This isn't one of the very high-end, I can shoot through a brick wall and take pictures of the other side kind of cameras, so I really had to think about how I was going to manipulate my picture so the fence either didn't show through, or so when it did show through, it was a creative aspect of the photo. It made for a really fun challenge and a really interesting shooting environment, and honestly it defined many of the shots you'll see not only from me but from other photographers throughout the weekend. And that leads me well onto my second point, that you really have to get creative with your angles. Because of the limitations with the catch fencing around you, you really have to look at your environment and figure out where can I either get to where there might not be a catch fence in the way, or where can I use the photo holes or utilize the infrastructure around me to make for really sick pictures. And I absolutely love this. It took a little while to get used to because I hadn't shot an oval until this point, but once I got into the swing of things, I found myself taking some really creative and fun pictures. I found myself panning through pit boards and crowds of people to get really sick shots of the cars going at full speed. You can also climb up into the grandstands to get unique overhead shots that you really can't get on any other circuit type. And as much as it does limit you in some ways, it also allows for you to flourish in creativity because there are certain shots you can really only get on ovals. For example, those vertical shots I just mentioned, or you can even shoot the opposite end of the track from the grandstands and get some really cool panning shots of the cars down the backstretch. It meant that I really had to challenge myself, my brain, and my photography abilities, and it was a challenge that I really enjoyed and I can't wait to do again. Now the next thing I want to talk about is debris. Oval circuits are unique in the way that tire marbles and race debris builds up on the track. Throughout a road circuit like Road America, the debris has the space to build up around the outside of corners around the entire track. But on an oval, there are technically four corners that the drivers race on for the entire distance. That's through practice, through the races, through qualifying, all going through these same two corners. So on the outside, you'll see a massive cushion of tire marbles develop as stints go on. This couples with the fact that while shooting on an oval, especially on the outside, you are right up next to the cars as they're blasting past you. This means that if you're far into a green flag stint and a car washes out wide or gets into those marbles, it's going to shoot debris and tire rubber straight into your face. I can recall the first time this happened to me, a car washed wide down to the marbles, and I'm sitting there oohing and eyeing as I'm watching the dynamics of the vehicle, and then all of a sudden I just get a showering of debris. And I wasn't really expecting that, because on a road circuit, even though you can get really close to the cars, you're generally not going to get as close as they get to you as you can on an oval. and even still, you're gonna have way more tire marble buildup, and the track development over time is gonna be way more on an oval, so there's just more debris to get flown up. So next time, I'll make sure I've got my glasses on, and there was a marshal who had a bandana on, pretty much as close to a ski mask as you can get without it actually being a ski mask, and at first I was like, oh, I wonder why he's got all that on, then I got hit with the debris and it hit me. That guy's got some experience. He's been doing this for a little longer than I've been doing it. So that's definitely going to be something to think about going into the next oval. Now, every single racing circuit's gonna have its own unique challenges, but on an oval, something I wasn't expecting is how you have to plan for where you want to be throughout a race session. Now, at Road America, for example, if I know a session's coming up, I can start at one spot and kind of have a good idea of where I want to get to, and I can get there with ease because there are lots of access roads, lots of bridges going over, tunnels going under the track, and there are a lot of different ways you can get places pretty efficiently. That's just not the case on an oval. If you are shooting on the inside and you want to get to a certain spot on the outside, there is one tunnel you can cross under to cross the track. That means you really have to plan ahead on where you want to be throughout a race session. Let's say you're on the outside of turn 3, for example, and you want to get a shot on the inside of turn 4. Well, you're going to have to walk all the way around to the front stretch, go under the track, and then walk back around to the inside of turn 4 to get that shot. This walk is probably a good 12-ish minutes depending on where you're at. You can really speed walk and get places a little bit quicker than that, but there is a lot of time just spent getting from point A to point B. For shorter sessions, you really have to think about, okay, where is the light going to be, where do I want to be sat, and how am I going to shoot this, and then how am I going to move, because you just don't have the time and the freedom to move about as willy-nilly as you can on a big open road circuit like Road America. That also couples with the creative way you have to shoot on an oval. At a big open road circuit like Road America, no matter where you are on the grounds, there will be some kind of on-track action somewhere you can shoot. That's just not the case on an oval. As you're walking from point A to point B, a lot of the times you're going to be next to the outside barrier, and you can't shoot that no matter how hard you try because it's a lot taller than you, or you might be in a crowd full of people, or even if you're in an open part of the circuit, you might have to shoot through a fence, or there might be a marshal post. There just aren't as many spots you can shoot from, and you aren't as free to shoot wherever you want to as you are at a track like Road America. So you end up having a lot of downtime during race sessions just while you're moving from point A to point B. You can't really pick up the camera, take a picture, and keep walking. You kind of have to walk from one point, get to the point you want to be, and then start shooting, which is really different and took a little bit of getting used to for sure. Now, the next thing I picked up on is less related to shooting itself, but more related to how incidents happen on ovals. If you're shooting at a place like Road America and a crash happens, there will be times where, yes, the car will get up into the wall right in front of you, or something will happen really close and you might experience it. But if a car is understeering or taking a different line, there's generally a pretty fair amount of space between yourself and the track. That's just not the case on an oval circuit, and the first time it happened, I got really spooked. For those of you who might not be as familiar with oval racing, as drivers are coming off of a corner, they're getting on power as soon as they can without washing wide and clipping the outside barrier. This means that if a car has an oversteer moment while getting on power or gets up into the marbles through the corner, they're coming straight at you. There are some times when I'd be looking through a media hole through the lens of the camera, and then I'd see the car would have a wiggle, and as you wiggle, the car's gonna wash out wide as you catch it. They're coming straight for you. And the extent to which these drivers are pushing the limits of the track in their cars, it's such that if they have a moment, there's a very high non-zero chance that they're gonna smack into the wall right where you're at. Luckily, that never happened while I was right up against the fence, but there were a couple of occasions where a car would either wash out wide or have a massive save through the corner, and it would just come straight at me. And whenever these moments happen, all I could really think is, I hope you're in your salary right now. This is why I get paid the big bucks, so hopefully you're not gonna smack into this outside wall right in front of me. It made for a really exciting and honestly at times adrenaline-inducing environment. You really have to be aware of what's going on the track, because there will be situations where you might have to duck out of the way if a car is coming at you as you're taking pictures. Another very fascinating aspect is how you have to work with the colors around you while shooting. At a place like Road America, regardless of the season, you're surrounded by beautiful trees, the grass in the track, the gravel. There's a lot of different colors you can use to bounce off of the cars to make pictures very vibrant and colorful. On an oval, you're pretty much surrounded by concrete and catch fencing. The majority of the colors that you're going to deal with are the gray from the asphalt and the concrete and the grandstands, plus the colors and accent colors of the safer barriers and infrastructure around you. So in this case, there was the red of the snap-on signs I could work with, as well as the blue of the barriers. This made for a very challenging shooting environment because a lot of the shots you're going to take are going to be pretty gray and dull because of that. You either have to pick out colors that accent well with the track, or you have to shoot in a way that either brings in some colors, or you can also work with that monotone nature and lean into it to make some pretty cool oval-centric, oval-style pictures. It was a very challenging thing to work around, and another aspect that's unique to oval racing and specifically paved oval motorsports. Now the last major point is that there is very little shade when shooting at an oval track. Road America is a place that's covered by trees and foliage and even has big infrastructure you can use to shade yourself, or at least from time to time while you're shooting, be in a reasonably cool environment, even on really hot and muggy days. When I was shooting the INDYCAR race at Road America, even though I believe it was like 87, 90 degrees and incredibly humid, there were times where I would just catch a break while shooting because I ended up standing in the shade. At the Milwaukee Mile, that's really just not an option a lot of the times. On the inside especially, the only shade you're going to catch is from infrastructure around you, like the media building, the pit stands. There aren't really any trees on the inside, and you're going to just be standing in the sun a lot of the time. Bringing some SPF sunscreen with you, a sun hat, a visor, are very important precautions you can take, and a lot of people did take just to keep some of that sun off you, to keep you cool, keep your skin from getting sunburned, and to keep the photographers nice and happy. Now on the outside of the track, luckily there were a few areas towards the backstretch that did have some trees I could duck under while shooting, but most of the time, even on the outside, you were just kind of standing in the shade. There meant oftentimes I had to make sure to carry water with me in my cargo pants, and I had to be cognizant of taking breaks between sessions, getting into the media center for the AC, because it gets really toasty really quick out there. And that's a wrap on my INDYCAR experience. It was so cool to be on ground zero, covering what ended up being such a historic Milwaukee Mile event. There was a packed grandstand, energy throughout the entire paddock. As much as it was 2 very long days, the entire time I'm just surrounded by such high energy, such good vibes, that I couldn't help but smile and be in awe at the experience that was put on by the track. And fun fact for you guys who made it all the more special, I grew up within 2 miles of this circuit. It was a place I heard of and spent a lot of time around as a kid. So being able to cover parts of this sport's history at this very circuit was just incredible. Massive thank you to all of the very friendly media staff and track staff who helped put this event on, all of the managers, the Milwaukee Mile for having me out there. It was such an awesome experience, and I cannot wait for this race next year.